Hello everyone and welcome. We are here, round 1 TLT live stream, first TLT stream of the year. Get hyped, that's all I can say really. Who's been hyped since 4 p.m. or since I woke up this morning? I definitely was. Obviously let me know in the chat if you guys can hear me just fine. We want to make sure it's all runs smoothly, no tech difficulties and things like that. But yeah guys, it's round 1, TLT's here. Hands up if you've changed your team about 10 different times. I definitely have. But yeah, guys, it's TLT round 1. How good is it? Great to see so many of you in the chat already as well. I was literally smiling as I was loading up the stream, just seeing people already in there saying, "Are we?" Like I saw Mike Myers, "Are we there yet?" Like people are just so keen for talking about SuperCoach and TLT, which is so good to see. So quick few shout outs as well. So we've got the Flatty Hole, Owen Eltringham, Sticky Nicky, Mitchell, Ben White, Owen again, Rocco, NRL Clips, Mark Hopewell, just so many of you guys in the chat already. So so good to see you all. We obviously will talk about TLT, my thoughts around some of the players who have been selected, who's not been selected, but kind of general questions that you guys have as well. Obviously we'll try to get to as many of those, as much as we can really. I don't really want to delay too much. I think I'm going to try to aim for maybe like an hour long stream, not really too much more than that. So I'll go through all the different team lists. We'll have a chat about that. And we'll also have a quick look at my current draft because I did make a couple of changes. And then probably likely tomorrow, I'll probably put out another video with an updated team draft. And then Thursday, I might post something on, say, Twitter or my YouTube page with my final team because I know I might post something tomorrow saying that's my final team. But we all know that's really not going to happen, is it? So, yeah, let's get straight into it. So hopefully you guys can see that okay. I've literally just got up the NRL.com browser page. We'll just go through game by game, look at the the inclusions, exclusions. I'm sure most of you guys would have seen this already. Given I'm guessing everyone who's here in the chat has 100% looked at the team list already. So I won't read out everyone, but we'll just kind of call out the key things. So how good was it at 4 p.m. to see this page load up though on your homepage? NRL round 1 team list drop. So obviously first game of the round, we've got the Panthers and the Sea Eagles. I'm already expecting a low-scoring game. It's been absolutely pouring in New South Wales, and obviously you guys up in Queensland, if you are watching from Queensland, would know how bad the rain has been. I live near the Georges River, so it's been a lot of flooding around me. Fortunately, it hasn't really affected me, which is good, but I'm expecting that game in Panthers to just be super, super washed out. Hopefully maybe low-scoring. So one of the reasons why I'm probably looking to not start with Turbo. Just hopefully he can score low and drop a lot in cash. But yeah, I mean, overall, to be honest, with the Panthers, I didn't see many surprises. Obviously, the big talking point, though, was Nathan Cleary's out for the first 3 rounds of the season, which I think makes it very, very easy to see, to steer away from Cleary and I think to build a good squad overall now that you can kind of use that money. And with 3 rounds that you don't have to worry about getting Cleary, it also allows for some price changes to kick in. So that hopefully makes it a little bit easier to actually get to him when you need to. And maybe you can just activate a trade boost. But that definitely opens up a lot of avenues for how you want to build your squad. So yeah, the backline, unfortunately Staines is named on the wing, so we're not going to get Robert Jennings or Taylor May. I did see a couple of people in the chat asking earlier, is Staines an option? If you played SuperCoach last year, you would know that Staines is not an option. He just does not have the base, does not have the work rate, and the Panthers always seem to favour the left side in any case. So his Staines is so inconsistent. It's so hard to predict when he's going to score well, when you play him. I would just steer clear. I don't even know what he's priced at. I haven't even looked at him, to be honest, so I would discourage anyone going for Staines, to be honest. But good to see Isaac Targo obviously named at left centre, kind of what we... not left centre, he'll probably play the right centre. Stephen Crichton will be on the left. So that's good to see that we'll get that locked in cheapie. I've advised with Targo to put him in your second row forward just because the centre wing has got quite a few cheapies. Obviously Sean O'Sullivan coming in for Cleary now that Cleary's going to be out for the first 3 rounds. And then the forwards, not really too much different here. I think we kind of expected that Liam Martin will get a starting role, but a lot of forward depth on the bench. You've got Sorensen, Lenu and Eisenhuth, so don't expect Liam Martin to play the full 80 minutes. So I'm not really considering Martin, to be honest. And I think without Cleary, it's kind of making me think I'm not going to load up too heavily on the Panthers, so I'm probably not going to be looking at the likes of Luai, To'o, etc. Probably just Targo because he's a nice cheapie that we can consider. So yeah, that's kind of my overall thoughts on the Panthers. I think nothing really crazy out of TLT apart from the big Cleary news. Manly, though, there was a couple of things that we could point at. So obviously the backline, top of the list though, Tom Trbojevic. Let me know anyone in the chat who is going to start with Turbo. That's one thing I think the whole Cleary issue does open up, is that if you're trying to fit in Cleary, that's almost like $1 million of your salary cap. now you can actually kind of maybe use that money and go to turbo if you want. But I'm personally not looking to start with turbo. I think the first, at least the first week potentially could be a very wet game, very slow. Just not sure how much scoring there's going to be. Not a lot of side-to-side football, although we know Tom can produce anything out of, nothing essentially. But I'm not looking to start with turbo. In the back line, Saab, Parker, Harper, Garrick, not really, nothing crazy there. Foreign and Cherry Evans. The forwards, though, a bit of, I think, more of the discussion points around the forwards. So I know there's been a lot of chat around Ethan Bullimore in the preseason. He's been named on the left edge in replacement of Josh Schuster. Ola Kawatu, a bit of a surprise. We were thinking he was going to be out a little bit longer, but he's making a very early return. So for round one. Now I know a few people. I was watching the Dual Position podcast stream just then. Hopefully a few of you guys have jumped over from that as well. There was a few questions around Sipley. Now, to be honest, I have not looked at Sipley at all in the preseason, but I think he had some pretty good stats looking at it, like decent PPM, like 1.14, I think it was. Starting could be interesting, 260k. I just thought maybe what's the deal with Josh Alloway? Someone can let me know in the chat. Actually, I see Sean is already saying that he thinks Alloway will be back around round 3. Yeah, that kind of makes me not as interested in Sipley, just because you're kind of maybe going to not even get him for his price change at the beginning. So yeah, Sipley is not someone I really considered, and I'll double check that news maybe after the stream. But if it does look like Alloway is going to come back in the first couple of rounds, probably not going to be looking at Sipley that much. But it is interesting that he is starting. Maybe someone we can keep on a watch list if there's other forward injuries. He's someone that we know is maybe held in decent regard. Bullimore starting, I think, is a good sign. He got the start over Lawton. Kula as well, who's a pretty exciting prospect, getting a bench spot. I'm not really sure what his role is going to be, playing in number 14, maybe a bit of a utility. He's the guy who's got like electric pace. He's extremely quick. Now he is 175k. I'm just concerned that if he's coming off the bench, number 14, maybe, I don't know how many, maybe he's playing like 15, 20 minutes. Just not sure how many points he's going to get. Maybe he gets like 15, 20 points, and that's kind of going to be like an AE nightmare, and maybe not necessarily a good cash cow. So Kula, even though he's been named, I'm probably not going to look to go with him. I think there's enough other cheap centers that we can maybe consider. Yeah, overall, I think Bullimore, I think I'm so torn on Bullimore still, whether I would go with him or not, but I don't think the risk is that bad. Just knowing that Schuster's going to be out for, I think, at least 4 or 5 rounds. He's got the start, playing on an edge. Maybe there's some attacking upside there, but noting that the games could be lower scoring. But I am thinking that at least for this round, maybe the forwards might do a little bit better than the backs. So, yeah, Bullimore, honestly, I can't even remember if he's in my current draft. But, someone I could consider. But really, not really much else, I think, from the Manly Sea Eagles. Not looking at Turbo, not looking at Garrick. Cherry Evans may be an option, actually, now that Cleary's out. But I do prefer Sam Walker. I think the hype train is really on for Sam Walker. I think he's probably going to skyrocket in ownership, especially now it looks like he's going to be goal kicking by the sound of it. But we'll discuss him more when we get to the Roosters. So I can see a lot of questions already in the chat as well. I don't want to just completely ignore it. So yeah, a few people saying Bullimore's a trap. Bullimore trap in my opinion. Bully trap in my opinion. So a few people are not too keen on Bullimore. So make of that what you will. The question was posed, is he a trap? So I think it's the hot word of the of round 1 TLT. Who's a trap? Who's not? Who's a lock? Who should we go for? Absolutely love it. But yeah, we'll scroll to the next game. Not really too much to make of the reserves there, in my opinion. We see Taylor Mays on the reserves and Jennings. Sad face, one of them in the starting lineup. But yeah, you can see Cleary out until at least round 4. So yeah, I'll make a plan to get Cleary in the future, but not going to be starting with him in any case. So next game, Raiders Sharks. Now it was kind of thought of already that Savage wasn't going to get the call up at fullback. It was been kind of tipped that Nickel Klukstad was going to take the fullback spot just for having that bit more of an experience compared to Savage, despite how good Savage looked in the trials. I mean, the main thing with the Raiders is James Schiller. So I saw a whisperer making a joke. Who else was like, who the hell is Schiller? I had no idea who he was as well. Now, I did a bit of a think about Schiller because I figured there'd be quite a few questions around him. Now, it looks like obviously Jordan Rapana's out with suspension for the first couple of rounds. And who's the other one? Sebastian Chris is out with COVID protocols. Now, Rapana could just come back in on the wing and take out Sami Valeme. And so Schiller could still be okay with Rapana coming back. But if Sebastian Chris, who was pretty decent last season, I thought he was pretty exciting. Now I'm just concerned that, Chris might just come back in the next like 2 or 3 weeks from COVID and just take out Schiller. Jared Croker might come back, but it seems like as though there's a bit of a, he was sent to the reserve grade. And so I think Schiller probably does have the nod over Croker, obviously, but Chris, I'm a little bit uncertain of. So my thoughts on Schiller is I'm probably not going to start with him. He's 100. He's not even in the Supercoach game. Maybe it is by the time I'll check again. But if he's 175k, I think there could be a risk of just carrying him and then you don't actually realize any price changes out of him. I think what I'd rather do is just not go with him and then say come round 3, if it looks like he's actually nailed to that spot, say Chris is back from COVID, but he doesn't out James Schiller, then I'll probably just look to get him in. He's 175k, so it's very easy to get him in. That's my thoughts on what to do with Schiller, in my opinion. And in all honesty, obviously we've got Brad Schneider, the starting halfback for the Raiders, so very, very good looking cash cow there, and especially without Croker. Apparently he does goal kick, so a goal kicking halfback at 188k, to me that's a cheap you just kind of don't ignore, and that should free up a lot of money for a lot of people as well. So Schneider I think is going to be very, very popular. Now the forwards for the Raiders, honestly I'm not considering any of them, in all honesty. I mean, Tapine potentially, but this is vaccination kind of thing, a question mark around him. And there's just like, you can see the depth in the forwards. Like they've got Papali'i, Hodgson, Tapine, Hudson Young, Harry O'Nira, Whitehead, Emre Gula, Adam Elliott, Corey Horsburgh. Like Ryan Sutton didn't even get a look into the entire 17. They've just got that much forward depth. And I can't trust Ricky's rotation with his forwards. So I'm not going to look to go with any forwards. I know a couple of people I saw had Tom Starling and some Rate My Teams that I looked at. Not too keen, I think, on Starling as well, being named on the bench there. So in all honesty, I think my only kind of Supercoach relevant players I'd see out of the Raiders is Brad Schneider, and I'm probably looking to avoid Schiller for now, and maybe look to get him in the first couple of weeks. Now the Sharks, again, not too many surprises here. So Connor Tracy's out, so Ronaldo Mulatalo's come into the centres, so Ikavalu's then come into the wing. I think the main people that players are going to be considering. You've got Nico Hines, I think Britton Cora, Teague Wilton, bit of an interesting one. Obviously, he was pretty decent last season when he got a start. I think his price, I want to say in the mid 400s, I'd have to double check. But his numbers were okay when he was starting, and obviously without the lack of, Wade Graham. Maybe Teague Wilton is someone you can consider. But I feel like the majority of people are going to go for Nakora if they go for a back rower from the Sharks. I haven't got Nakora in my current draft, but I do think that he's going to be a decent option, in all honesty. Playing off the edge of like Nico Hines, I think there could be some good combinations there. The Sharks draw is a little bit up and down. It's okay, in my opinion, for the first kind of 8 weeks. But with a forward like Nakora, not as concerned really about the draw, I think, in my opinion. So yeah, I think not really too much more to say about the Sharks. I mean, on the bench there, you've got Tolman, Talakai, Royce Hunt, and Fafita. So I should also mention Fafita named on the bench there is good. So you could look to pick him up at 205k in the bench. And apology guys if there's any background noise. You can hear the wind is pounding against my window at the moment. But Fafita named in the 17 could be someone that we consider. I think Fafita's currently in my draft just to kind of be a nice cash cow, but we'll have a few more kind of front row forwards that we can consider. So cough the Cowboys, have a couple of options that we maybe could consider. I think Nico Hines is someone I've seen a few questions about as well in previous video comments. I think it's a decent option, especially without Cleary. You can go down to like Nico Hines, 680k. He's got dual flexibility. He should be goal kicking as well. I personally think that he's going to have a good season. I don't think he's going to struggle, but I kind of want to see it first, just in case there's any kind of growing pains. I'm very cautious, probably my personality as it is. So in Hines, I'm like, yeah, I think he's going to be good, but I maybe want to see it first, and then maybe I'll look to jump on in the future. And I think I'm more interested in Sam Walker, who's a lot cheaper and should be goal kicking, and I really do fancy the Roosters. So yeah, not too much more I think to consider out of that game. So I've seen there's quite a few questions coming in. I'll try to answer as many as I can. Then you guys turned me away from even considering Sipley very quickly. Yep, it looks like people are very quick to see Sipley starting, but then a few people maybe a little bit cautious on it now. I think we'll go back to the next game. So don't need to read all the commentary. Broncos, Rabbitohs. Now there is a few talking points out of the Broncos because I think a lot of players were looking at the Broncos from a cheapy perspective, right? So we had the likes of, say, Billy Walters, Corey Pakes. Someone did correct me as well that he's not French. He's not Pay, he's Corey Pakes. He's not even in the team. It does look like he was maybe out with COVID. That could be one reason why he's out. But Jake Turpin gets a starting spot at hooker, and I was never really considering Corey Peck, to be honest, in my opinion. I didn't really want to go with the cheap hooker route, so he's kind of off the table. The backs, though, there's quite a lot to talk about there as well. So no Jordan Pereira. Now that's a bit disappointing. I thought he'd be pretty decent at 266k. Got a decent work rate, but they've got Corey Oates there. I mean, again, there's so much rotation with the Broncos. You could see potentially, Pereira come back into the fold pretty quickly. Obviously, Stags, I think, is going to be very popular as well. And Cobbo moving to the wing, and it's Psycho at fullback. So that does kind of dent Cobbo's appeal just a tad. Although the fact that he's playing outside Tony Staggs, that could be a pretty dangerous right side. So I don't still mind holding Cobbo for round 1. But it would have been much better, I think, if he was playing at fullback. I think I'm going to steer away from Cobbo, most likely. Staggs is in my current team, but I'm still not like 100% certain on Staggs if I want to run with him, or maybe take the money out of there and put it elsewhere. But Staggs, I think, is a fairly safe bet. He is very highly owned, so you could also just pick him just to kind of go with the crowd. And so if he does really well, you're not going to get burnt too bad. But if he flops, then, a lot of people are going to be suffering at the same time as you. Billy Walters has been named a number 6, but Adam Reynolds is going to be out for the first week, so I expect Albert Kelly to just go back to the 5'8" come round 2. So Billy Walters, I don't think, is really an option. Again, there's some forward changes here just because a couple of forwards are out, like Kobe Hetherington. I think he's out with COVID. Otherwise, I thought he would have been the starting lock, and I thought Carrigan would have been at prop. So potentially, if you are maybe looking at someone like Palacia, I'm not sure if he's going to stay there at prop. I mean, Payne Haas is not going anywhere. And then the back row is Capel and Ricky. That's kind of what I expected as the starting back row as well. And you got the likes of Ryan James on the bench there. So I think, I'm looking at that bench. There's some decent forwards there in terms of like Kennedy and Rabati, but I really still like going with Payne Haas. I think he is 100% the leader of this forward pack. And I think, he is still on my team, and I'm looking to keep him as much as I can, just because I think just lock him in. I don't have to worry about trading him then until, say, like State of Origin time. And just lock him in for the rest of the season, in all honesty. So that's kind of the main thing I wanted to discuss of the Broncos. See if there's any questions around that. So, sorry, I'm not going to have to scroll and see. I've seen some EPL questions in the chat as well, guys. You're getting confused. This is the NRL SuperCoach Round 1 TLT stream. No FPL or EPL. No, I'm just joking. You can ask them, but whether or not the rest of the people want to be seeing that, I'm not 100% sure. I can see people saying that Schneider's up to about 10% ownership already. Yeah, that's going to keep going and going, isn't it? A couple of people asked me about Brandon Smith, so I think we can discuss Brandon Smith when we get to the Storm. Can we discuss Ramian? Yes, Stuart, sorry, I didn't really discuss Ramian from the Sharks. I don't know. I think Ramian last season, a lot of people jumped on him because he had pretty good base. And I remember he had one game where he scored like 120 and he was breaking so many tackles. I think he might have scored like 1 or at least 2 tries. And that game got everyone very interested. He just didn't replicate it again, though, for the rest of the season. Like, he's got pretty good base. But, yeah, I think he's fairly expensive. I think he's plus 500k. I personally would, go a little bit cheaper than that. I would prefer like a low max, in all honesty, just because he's goal kicking. I think the Dragons are, they look pretty good in the trials and the preseason. So I think from an attacking perspective, they could be able to score points. So someone like Lomax could be benefiting from that. Whereas Raymond's kind of, I see more as that kind of safety, give you like 50 to 55 in base and power, but the upside maybe not as much. So that's kind of my thoughts on Ramian. I don't think I'd be considering him, in all honesty. And a couple of people talk about Nakora as well. So yeah, I think let's quickly move on to the Rabbitohs. So nothing surprising here. I think Taane Milne is playing on the wing instead of Mansour. That was something I wasn't expecting, but from a Supercoach perspective, I think Taane Milne is like mid 400s. So it seems a little bit awkward of a price in my opinion. Lachlan Ilias at number 7, just get him. I think the Schneider Ilias cheapies in the halfback and 5'8" is just like almost like a no-brainer in my opinion. Very, very cheap assets. Ilias is dual listed as well. To me, it just makes a lot of sense to go with Ilias. Now the forwards, a couple of people did ask me about Kaloma Tungi in the preseason. I mean, look, he's fine in my opinion. I think, but that's kind of how I see it. Like, he's fine. I think if I was going to go for any forward from the Rabbitohs, it would be Cam Murray, just because we know he's got that upside. But I'm probably not going to start with Murray. Just I've noticed over the past couple of seasons, he tends to start a little bit slow. He's also coming off surgery as well, so he might not hit the ground running to start off with. So I'm kind of happy to leave him be just for a little bit. The Rabbitohs do also have a tough first month, so I'd expect the base to be fine, but not much upside. So I think at his price, I can maybe steer away and hope that he drops a little bit and look to pick him up in a few weeks after that. And Damien Cook, I'm not too keen on. I think I prefer Reid Marnie and Harry Grant. Just Cook's average has been declining year on year for the past few seasons. Tavita Totola, maybe an option. But again, the Rabbitohs always have a pretty decent forward pack. You've got Host, Burgess, Cheekham on the bench there, so they can offer some good coverage. I mean, Jai Arrow was someone I did consider just because I thought maybe playing on the edge, there could be some attacking upside there. And I'm sorry, sometimes I forget my rugby league positioning. If he's on the left edge, would he be protecting the halfback or the 5'8"? Someone remind me in the chat. You'd think I would know this, but maybe for example, they know that they've got Ilias, a young halfback. Opposition teams might want to target him. So maybe the back row who's kind of playing outside him might be forced to make a few extra tackles. If that's Arrow, maybe he might get a little bit upside on his base, and maybe some attacking upside as well. So yeah, maybe Arrow I'd consider. Cam Murray maybe in a few weeks as well. And Ilias is a no-brainer in my opinion. A few people are asking about showing my team. I'll definitely show my current draft and we'll do a bit of a tinker. I just wanted to go through the teams, give my overall thoughts, and then I can kind of use that to think about my own team because that's not even locked in now as well. So yeah, that's kind of my overall thoughts on the Rabbitohs. A few people I think did mention some Rabbitohs options like Tane Milne, but that was more for last season. Mike Myers said Taff as a pod halfback. I would not go with Taff in all honesty, even though he is starting this week. I fully expect that when when Latrell Mitchell comes back next round, Taff is going to drop out and probably just go to the 14. I feel like if they wanted Taff to be the long-term halfback, they would have just started him there from round one and found put Johnston in at say fullback and put in Mansour on the wing. And done it that way. But the fact that they've got Ilias there from round one makes me think that he's their long-term halfback. And so I expect Taff to maybe go back to the bench as a 14 utility. So I would not be considering Taff in my opinion. I just don't think his job security is very good from a minutes perspective moving forward. I think he'll feature in the 17, but he won't give enough kind of minutes, I think, to warrant selecting him. Left side is Walker. Yes, of course. Thank you guys. How could I forget the Rabbitohs left edge is always Walker running down that side. So actually no, sorry, Jai Arrow, the number 12, he'd be playing on the right, wouldn't he? I'm just thinking in my head, you've got Angus Crichton as number 11 and he plays on the left. So and Tupinall is the number 12 and he plays on the right. So would he be playing on the right as well? So maybe Arrow is outside Ilias. So maybe what I was saying is true, but look, this is just any narrative. You can build any narrative to pick any player you want, but Arrow could be an option. He's got the dual flexibility as well. Okay, next team. Oh, there we go. Isaiah Tass and Ezra May. I'm just sitting in the reserves there, and Jordan Pereira crushing the cheapie hopes. All right, next game, Roosters and the Knights. I think there's a lot to talk about from the Roosters. I think there was a big kind of, not big shock, but definitely some talking points, I think, out of the Roosters lineup. So good to see Tedesco in there, but it's number 3, Billy Smith starting. I don't think many people were expecting that. I think most people were expecting Momirovski to play in that centre's position and then have Kevin Nguama on the right wing. That's obviously not the case. Now, I've heard a few people already discussing this, and I think I have seen a few people in the chat asking about who's goal kicking, thoughts on Momirovski. Now, I've kind of got a similar train of thought to what the guys said on the Dual Position podcast. If you guys tuned into that, I would feel that if they wanted Momirovski as that starting centre, they would have put him there from the beginning and put maybe Billy Smith on the right wing instead. But I am also a Roosters fan, and they do really like Billy Smith. They do rate him. He's just unfortunately had a lot of injuries, but it doesn't surprise me that Billy Smith has actually been named to start. And so Momirovski, I'm actually a little bit wary of. The word is also that Sam Walker is going to be goal kicking, not Momirovski. Therefore, the appeal of Momirovski, look, if I could tell you that Momirovski was locked in for right wing goal kicking, I would 100% get him because the right wing spot is a very covetable spot for the Roosters. But my potential worry with him is that he could just be kind of sitting warm in that position until Suwali comes back. Now, the flip side of that is, well, Suwali's still young. They might want to protect him. They don't need to rush him back. Momirovski's perfectly fine, and they've got Nguama behind him as well. So there's enough depth there. But I feel like Suwali, they're going to want to get him into the team, more and more. They obviously had to blood him last season because of injuries. See, Momirovski I'm not too keen on. I think it could be a bit of a risk. And he's not cheap either. He's like 480k. But Billy Smith does come straight into the thinking because he's sub 300k. I think he's 294k. Now, obviously doesn't have the appeal of being on the end of the tries in the sense of being a winger, but I think it's 294k for a piece of the Roosters backline to me is pretty straightforward. I think you can very comfortably go for him. Look, he's got injury history, but these blokes are smashing into each other. The guy with no injury history could get injured the next day. So despite the injury risk, I think you just take him. And look, if he gets injured, it probably just means that someone like Suwali comes back in if he's fit, or Momorowski or Nguama, and you just kind of make the switch then, in my opinion. So I would definitely be going with Billy Smith, I think, in my opinion. And Sam Walker is straight into my team as well with all the Cleary news, just because with the fact that if he is goal kicking, he is inconsistent. Like when he plays the tougher teams, he can go low, but he can go massive when he plays the easier teams as well. He had scores of like 160 last season. And honestly, I know he's goal kicking. He wasn't a very good goal kicker last year either. So I don't even think it makes that much of a difference, because he could lose points very easily from missing the goal kicks as well. But yeah, Sam Walker, I think I'm definitely on that hype train. Kiri, I'm a little bit less keen on, just because he is coming back from that kind of longer term injury. So I feel more comfortable just starting with Walker, in my opinion. I probably wouldn't double up on them, just because the draw is decent for the first 8 weeks, but it starts more from round 3 compared to round 1. So Kiri is maybe someone I look at from round 4 if I did want to do the double up. But I think if I'm just going to start with one, I'll probably start with Walker, just for that kind of goal kicking safety net. And I think his upside is tremendous as well. So Sam Walker I'm definitely keen on. Now, I have seen a few people's teams with Connor Watson in it. I don't recommend Connor Watson just because Verrills is suspended for round 1. But I think Verrills is going to come back into the team pretty soon, and I expect Verrills to be the starting number 9 and Connor Watson to be that kind of bench utility, similar to what he was doing for the Knights. And he's priced at about 515k, which I think is kind of what he's priced at in terms of his max potential average. At least for someone who's coming off the bench. So even though he's starting this week, I would not be considering Connor Watson, in my opinion. I mean, in the forwards, I do like going for either one or even both of the back rows if you really wanted to. You know, Angus Crichton and Tupanua. Crichton is in my team at the moment. I just think the upside and the consistency of him is unreal. He'll get you 70, 75 without breaking a sweat by the look of it. And he very easily can score a lot of tries as well. So Crichton and Fafita are the two kind of guns in the second row forward. I think I'm really trying to make sure I get into my team to start off with if I can. So yeah, Crichton I'm definitely very, very keen on. And I think if you're looking for a more cut price option in the back row, you could go instead with Tupanua. I think these edge back rows should get a lot more tries. I think with a combination of both Kiri and Sam Walker, I think I'm expecting, in my head, I'm just thinking of the back rows running through holes and going over for easy tries. So I really like having at least one of the Roosters back rowers, in my opinion. And on the bench, not too much to speak of there. I think obviously there's a few ins and outs with suspensions. So you've got like likes of the Fletcher Baker, Nat Butcher and Takiaho. But don't really think you're going to be considering any of them. So yeah, from the Roosters overall, that's kind of my summary on the Momorowski, Billy Smith situation and Suwali. And on the halves, I think I've made it pretty obvious. I'd probably lean towards Sam Walker. Now the Knights. So the Knights, again, a few talking points out of this as well, mainly in the forwards. I don't think too many people are going to be considering their backs. I'm not too keen on Ponga at the moment. Just the Knights don't seem to be the most fluid in attack. We kind of saw that in the preseason trials. Doesn't even think he'll be goal kicking. That'll be Clifford. But the forwards I definitely did want to chat a little bit more about. So Clemmer's got the start. Apparently he had a pretty good preseason. So he has been someone who's been very good for SuperCoach, but mainly when he was offloading a lot. So I'm kind of just thinking he's over 500k in my opinion. If I want to see the offloads happen before I maybe invest in him. And plus I think if I'm going to spend more than 500k in front row forward, it would mainly just be Fanua Blake or Payne Haas in my opinion. Now, Kurt Mann named it lock. We've kind of heard this in the preseason from the likes of Barry Toohey. So it is the bench makeup, though, does make it a little bit iffy whether you go for Mann. I did see a few people in the chat earlier asking about Mann, saying, they're a little bit unsure. I kind of feel the same way as well. Now, Barnett being on the bench is a bit of an interesting one because Barnett can play lock, can play in the back row. I've heard from Wacko's whispers, though, that he's thinking that Barnett would play more in the front row at prop. But again, it still kind of throws a little bit of a question mark. Like Barry Toohey said, he could think that Kurt Mann could play like 65 to 70 minutes, but kind of just want to use the historical kind of data or whatever that we have, which was Connor Watson last year playing at lock. He was playing around 50 to 55 minutes. So maybe Mann does get 60. It's not too dissimilar to the 55 that Watson was getting. So I think Mann could still be okay, maybe as a pick. Look, the worst case is even if he plays like 45, 50 minutes, he's probably going to get you 45 to 50 in any case, playing at lock. So, it's pretty safe in your center wing, but he might just like the upside there. So it kind of depends, I think, on your taste. Would you want to just kind of lock that in at around 380k? Or do you maybe want to spend a little bit more and then kind of, get in, more your higher upside centers, like maybe a Lomax or a Katoni Stags? So yeah, that's my kind of thoughts on Man. I need to think about it a little bit more. I mean, Chris Randall starting is fantastic. I think we can all lock him in as a nice cheapy hooker to go for. Someone's asked, does Man shift to 9 potentially? Maybe. I mean, Crossland, in my opinion, plays more as a half, doesn't he? But the fact that he's played at the 14, he could play a bit more of that utility where he comes on and, takes some minutes off Randall, maybe like 20 minutes or so from Randall. But I think Randall is a pretty good worker. He's got a pretty decent work rate and a good engine. So I think Randall should be playing the majority of minutes. So I'm not sure actually how much that Man will play at number 9. I think he'll more or less stay in lock or then go to the bench, in my opinion. But Man is also very versatile himself. So, say an injury to, say, Clifford, they very easily could put Crossland or Man into 5'8". So Man is versatile, which hopefully helps him to stay into the team a little bit longer. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Man. I'm still needing to think about him a little bit more. And on the bench, so we've got Jara Momoasia. So he was someone we've discussed in the preseason at 205k. I think there's a few forward injuries at the Knights. So obviously Dan Safidi is out. And I think it's 3 to 5 weeks or 3 to 5 rounds is what I've seen. So Momoasia could potentially have that gig for that period of time. Or it could be Leo Thompson, who drops out instead. So I think you could maybe go with one of these two guys, but their kind of shelf life might not be super long. So I'm a little bit iffy on whether I start with them. Maybe I just pay a little bit more and go for someone like a Jermaine Tunua-Brown potentially. So that's my thoughts on Momoasia. I might not start with him, but someone that we could maybe keep in mind. Leo Thompson, I think he's going to be more of a stopgap just when they've got these forward injuries, but Suaso Su should also be coming back soon. I expect him to take a place in the 17, so that also eats into the forwards as well. And so I'm just not sure about the shelf life of Thompson and Momoasia, so I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to be starting with the pair of them. And yeah, not really too much I think to speak of in the reserves. So I wanted to quickly address a couple of questions I saw in the chat. Some people asked about Victor Radley. I've seen at Barnes, he's saying, I'm going Radley over Crichton. Look, I don't personally agree with that. I would 100% go with Crichton if I could, just because you know exactly what you're going to get. Like, Radley did put in some good performances at the back end of last season, and I think the attacking upside could be there because he is very involved in the play at lock, links up the play very well. The judiciary history does not work well against Radley. I mean, even same with Crichton. Even Crichton's built up quite a bit of a record there, so it just scares me a little bit with Radley. I don't see him changing the way he plays that much. In all honesty, he's a fiery character, and he very easily could still get those suspensions. So I don't see that as a good compromise. Like, in my opinion, I'd probably go with Tupanua over Radley. I don't know if that sounds crazy. I just have a feeling that these edge back rowers are going to be getting a lot of tries. That's my gut feel. So I'd probably go with Tupanua instead of Radley, just to maybe chase that upside a little bit more. But Radley obviously is a good worker through the middle as well. A few people questions asking about Man. Does Kurt Mann do Connor Watson's job? Probably similar, I think, to what Connor Watson was doing. And yeah, his versatility is a double-edged sword, exactly. He could just fill in at centre in an injury, if there was an injury, and we might see just a complete reduction in his points. We'll go to the next game, but guys, just a quick plug. I see that there's 86 people watching, but there's only 12 likes on the stream. Let's get some likes there. We'll push out the word to anyone else who wants to join in the TLT Round 1 hype. But no, really appreciate, obviously, all of you guys being here with me tonight as well. So, next game, Warriors and Dragons. So, we got the Warriors team a little bit earlier, just because they typically release it at 3 p.m. our time to, kind of account for the New Zealand time. Now, Chanel Harris-David at fullback is just because Reece Walsh is out for round 1. But we've got our cheapie, Viliami Valet. I think that's how you pronounce it. He's 205k. Truth be told, I haven't seen much of his highlights. But look, he's 205k. The Warriors have got a really nice draw as well to begin the season. So I'm very confident starting with him at 205k. I think a few people in the preseason also asked about Rocco Berry. Look, I think Rocco Berry is someone that you could consider as well. But I just feel you can just go like 100k cheaper and lock in the other center, in my opinion. So Yeah, to me, I'm not really considering Rocco Berry. I think it could be a decent pod, but when you've got Valet there so much cheaper, I'm just going to lock him in and not have to worry about other Warriors backline players. And hopefully we don't get a David Fusatua 2.0 from anyone from last season who remembers Fusatua. That was one of the... that was not a very good pickup as a cheapie centre wing. You've got Nicarima playing in the halves and Sean Johnson. So Johnson, haven't really considered Johnson in all honesty, actually, just because I think with Cleary being out, it just means I can stretch a little bit further up to Sam Walker, which I'm more confident in. I just feel the Roosters are going to perform overall better than the Warriors, but they have got a nice draw. So if you wanted to go on to Johnson, you could. But again, I'm just a little bit concerned. He's got a few injuries built up in him recently. Obviously, he's fit to go for round 1, but he might not even be goal kicking. Nicarima can kick, Harris Tavita can kick. And I think without goal kicking, it kind of limits that upside in my opinion. But he has got a lot of good forwards that he can obviously pass the ball on to for tries. So I think the forwards definitely, there's a lot of discussion we can have for the Warriors. So Fanua Blake, I think, is probably the second best front row forward gun I'd go for, behind Payne Haas. Wade Egan, not really going to be considering that too much. Bunty Afoa, shout out to Anton Posa, if he's watching, or if he watches the replay, the biggest, what's the word? Just biggest, praiser of a Bunty Afoa appreciation. Now, the back row and the lock, so Ewan Aitken, Katoa, and Josh Curran. So I think a few people, myself included, I was very keen on Aitken to start the season, just because he was putting up good numbers when he was playing in the back row at the back end of last season. And I still think he's going to be a good option, just because they have got that nice draw to begin the year. You could make a little bit more of a saving for Katoa, but I have seen some news that Tohu Harris is actually recovering a lot better from his injury, and he could be coming back between round 6 and 10. Now, when Tohu Harris is fit, he's going to be straight back into that Warriors team. He's that much of a gun player for them. And then I'd expect Curran to stay in the back row. So maybe Tohu Harris goes to lock, Curran goes to back row. And then I think it's going to be a bit of a shootout between Aitken and Katoa, which one of the two actually kind of stays in the back row. So it may be a bit of a punt going with them, but I think if you're getting them for at least 6 weeks, I don't think that's too short of a time frame. The fact that they've got that good draw makes me think it's okay to go for him. So I'm still very comfortable. I think if you wanted to go for an Aitken or a Katoa, I would expect Aitken to play the full 80, but Katoa not so much. I think Katoa is more likely maybe to play like your 55, 60, 65 minutes. And then obviously the guys like Murdoch Masila can come on, Bailey Sirinen as well. Jazz Tavanga is someone who's, look, when he plays, his PPM is insane, but he just tends to give away so many penalties and sin bins that I'm not sure I'd be confident starting with Jazz Tavanga. And Curran, he could play that roaming role that Tohu does, starts at lock and then maybe moves around to the back row. But I think there's enough value in going with, say, the likes of Aitken or Katoa that you can maybe not look at Curran. I think Curran is a great option, but I think I'd prefer to take the money saving and stick with Aitken or Katoa. I can't even remember if Aitken's in my current draft at the moment, but I have seen a few people with Katoa and Aitken. So I'd be keen to see what you guys think in the chat. Actually, Aitken versus Katoa. It's basically Aitken versus Katoa and 100k. So I'd be keen to see what you guys say about that, because at the moment I'm still thinking Aitken, just because he showed at the back end of last year he's got very good base and the upside could be there. And then, not too much to speak of on the bench there at the moment. Now, the Dragons. We quickly touch on the Dragons. So their draw is very up and down to begin the year. So it's a bit of a funny one because I'd mainly be looking at their backline players and not their forwards. So you've got Sloan at fullback, Ramsey on the wing, Sully coming in there. Really, there's nothing controversial, I think, about that backline. I think we all thought that Amon was going to get that 5'8" spot. So playing at 5'8", I feel pretty comfortable sticking in Amon in my centre wings. Now, I probably wouldn't put him in at 5'8", just because you've got Ilias there, and then I don't think you'd want to put in Amon, so you wouldn't be running them as your two 5'8s. So I'd probably advise to put Amon in at your centre wing. Now, in the forwards, I'd maybe only consider Jack Bird, named on the back row. He has got a pretty Supercoach-friendly game, but the price is high, 498k. There's a genuine argument, Ewan Aitken versus Jack Bird, they're both named at number 11, so you could even take Jack Bird. I would maybe just go with Aitken for the draw, just to start the year, just because their draw is so much better than the Dragons, and I kind of see the Warriors and the Dragons not too dissimilar in terms of the overall quality of the team. So maybe I'd stick with Aitken instead of a Jack Bird. But yeah, the backline players like Lomax and Sloan especially, they really do interest me, just because while the draw is tough, these guys might stay as pods, and then, if they do end up doing really well in their tough matchups, then you could be laughing because you could come out on the other side of that having, really great pods from the Dragons. I mean, fullbacks always do well typically for Supercoach, so Sloan I think could be an option, but I highlighted from his scores from last year. They were good scores, but he scored a try in like every game. Lomax though, he had an injury affected season, but every game that he played, I think over 70 minutes, he averaged 60 plus. So I think Lomax is just a safe bet. You know that you're going to get pretty consistent scores out of him, and he goal kicks, so you know that there's some upside there. And look, unfortunately for Lomax, we've got Tommy Turbo in New South Wales, so I don't know if Lomax is going to get a centre wing spot for State of Origin, but he definitely could be up there. So Lomax I'm actually very keen on potentially squeezing into the team if I could. I probably would choose Lomax over Sloan, in my opinion, just because Sloan's scores were very dependent on the attacking stats, and Lomax less so because he's got the goal kicking there. So that's my thoughts on those kind of backline players from the Dragons. A few people have asked about AFB. Yeah, I didn't really talk about AFB that much, but I did say, look, I think he's probably the second best front row forward to go for. So if you've got Fanil Blake in your team, I'm not going to say anything bad about that. I think he's a great pick. It's just kind of tough to fit him in, plus all the other guns that I'm thinking about getting in. So I might not be able to start with him, but obviously if I could, I would love to. I think he's going to be a great option. Okay, yeah, that's probably it, I think, for the Dragons. Not really any other players I'm considering. So only a few more games to go. So Tigers and Storm. I'm going to start with the Storm before I talk about the Tigers. Pappy. Good to see Ryan Pappenhausen has been named there. So I'm locking him in to my team. Fantastic option. Average like 100 plus, 110 plus when you played full 80-minute games. Nothing really changed here. Obviously no Munster or no Grant. So Nick Meaney's come in at 5'8". I do think Meaney could be someone we look at, say maybe around Origin time, if Pappenhausen does play for the Blues, or if Pappenhausen gets injured, for example, and Meaney slots in at fullback. I think he could be like a Hines 2.0 kind of situation. So Meaney's someone to consider, but I'm not looking to start with him. Coates, I know Coates is very popular. I haven't really considered Coates just because I don't see the Storm wingers having the same level of base as a lot of the other kind of wingers from other teams. They just don't tend to bring the ball out as much as some of the other teams. But obviously, that's not really the main reason why you go for their players. You go for the upside of tries. And I think the tries will be there for sure. But yeah, Coates is someone I'm just not looking to start with. Maybe someone I jump on later. But like I would prefer to go with like, Stags, Lomax, and around his price. To be fair though, I think he maybe is a bit more of an option because there's some question marks around Beau Fermor, as we'll see with the Titans, and also with Kurt Mann, as we discussed. So I think both of those guys are around that 380k range. So maybe you go down to like a Xavier Coates. Taylor in Redden says the Tigers win this game. Look, the Storm are missing a few players. They did beat the Roosters in the preseason, but I'm going to back in the Storm, I think, for this one, to be honest. Especially, they're playing in Combank in Sydney. If it's a wet game, I just see the Storm forwards just doing a number on the Tigers. So, yeah, I would see the Storm probably winning this one. Brandon Smith obviously starting at number 9, so definitely someone we can consider. I'm probably not going to start with Smith just because he was so reliant on the tries last year. He did burn me though last season because I didn't get him and he kept scoring tries for fun. So I'm willing to, not go with him again and be burnt again. So Smith could be an option. He's got dual flexibility, but I think at hooker it's hard to fit him in. I do prefer the likes of Reed Miney or Grant. And then at second row forward, he's 590k. I would just try to find the money to go up to like a Crichton if I could. But Smith, look, he was in one of my teams, but then he was out again very quickly. But yeah, definitely someone I would look at. And Josh King. So Josh King named at lock, I think is an interesting point, but I think it's just going to be for this week. Next week, I'd expect Grant to come straight back in at number 9, and then I expect Brandon Smith to come back in at 13, and then that might just demote Josh King to the bench. So I'm probably not certain on maybe starting with King. He's around 255k, but just that kind of minutes uncertainty if he gets named to the bench next week just means I'm probably not going to jump on him. And Tyrone Wishart, so apparently I haven't seen much of him, but apparently he's a very quality hooker. He is 175k, but again, I expect, when Grant's back, when they've got Grant and Smith, they don't really need that much more hooker coverage. So probably wouldn't be considering him or Nicarima on the bench there. So mainly, again, from the Storm, not too many surprises here. I think, Smith, Munster when he's back, Grant when he's back, Xavier Coates and Pappenhausen, probably your main options. But yeah, some of these cheapies that have cropped up, like Josh King and Wishart, probably not going to be leaning towards them, in my opinion, just because I think there's some uncertainty with their job security. And guys, I've just noticed that there's 102 viewers. I think that's the most that we've ever had. So really appreciate all of you guys tuning in for this TLT stream. A few people asking about Munster. Yeah, look, Munster I think is going to be a fantastic option to start the year with. I'll kind of go through the next few games, conscious that I've already been talking for 47 minutes. I'll go through the next few games a little bit quicker, just so I can do some tinkering with my team. I think a few of you guys might hopefully appreciate that. Look, from the Tigers, not too many kind of notable pieces of news here. You've got Hastings in at 5'8", but I'm probably not going to go with Hastings because it doesn't look like he's going to be goal kicking. Now the forwards though, we have got Kelma Tuolagi and we have got Luke Garner on the bench, which I think is huge. That hopefully just means that Tuolagi is ahead in the pecking order. So Tuolagi, 253k, I think lock him in your second row forward bench. So yeah, I'm very comfortable with going with Tuolagi. Probably not going to go with Luciano Leilua. I have some thoughts on him just because he has kind of trended around the same 62 average over the past couple of seasons. Just don't see that much. He does have upside, but the inconsistency is there as well. So the Tigers themselves are very inconsistent. So yeah, probably not looking at him too much. But yeah, I think the big one out of here is Kelma Tuolagi starting. And with Garner on the bench, that shows that maybe he is ahead in the pecking order. So yeah, I'm very comfortable going with Tuolagi there. All right, last couple of games, guys, and then we'll be able to get onto some team talk. So the Eels, again, not many surprises here, a very settled team. I'm looking to really jump onto the Eels players from the beginning if I can. I just have a feeling that they're going to be pushing really, really hard to begin the year. I feel like this is their last window with this current set of players to go for the premiership. And, I've seen quotes from Gutherson saying the same thing as well. So, yeah, Gutherson, I think if Pappenhausen wasn't named, I would go Gutherson. But I think the fact that Teddy and Pappy are in just means I'm not going to go with Gutherson. But if you want to go for a pod, I don't mind it. I just think he lacks the upside of those guys like Turbo, Latrell, Pappenhausen, and Tedesco. I feel like he's just in the tier below that. But Sean Russell, good to see him get the left wing spot. 100% locking him into my team. The left wing for the Eels is a very, very profitable area, in my opinion. I think it's the side of the field that they do favour. So Russell, I'm locking him in. Dylan Brown and Moses, I think I've seen in quite a few preseason teams. I think Dylan Brown's actually in my current draft as well, just because he's a pretty cheap, 466k, and he's got very good base. And then the forwards, to be honest, I'm actually not looking at many of their forwards apart from Reid Marnie. Again, I'm just thinking if I want to really lump into the Eels, I could go with Marnie instead of Grant just to save myself the 60k. And the Eels do have a pretty nice run of games to begin the year. And Marnie looked pretty sharp in the preseason trial. So Marnie I'm very seriously considering. Madison not so much because playing at lock, I do think his minutes might get reduced a little bit. And then that means he probably lacks that attacking upside as well, not playing on the edge. So yeah, Madison, probably not going to be looking at him. On the bench, a few players like Ray Stone, no Mitch Rain on the bench, which I think is good for Marnie, It should mean that Marnie is going to play the big minutes, 70 plus minutes. So that also gives me some extra confidence in picking Marnie, I think, to begin the year. That's kind of my main thoughts around the Eels. I'll see if there's a few questions from the chat around the Eels players. You know what, I think when I get to the team, my own team, I think we'll do more questions then, just so we can do a bit of a tinker and a play around. A few guys have asked about Kafusi. No, I don't think I'd be considering Kafusi. Haven't seen him be someone who's SuperCoach relevant in the past as well. And Titans, again, I think the main talking point out of this is Beau Fermor starting at number 12, but there is Kevin Proctor on the bench. So a bit of uncertainty how many minutes Beau Fermor is going to play. So I know he was very popular because he has got second row forward and centre wing flexibility, but a little bit iffy on him now. Tino, named as club captain. Oh my God, did anyone see Tino's haircut? That is one of the worst things I've seen. Shout out to me in the chat if you have seen that. It's like a mullet bun. No further comment from myself. But Tino playing at lock is typically actually better as a SuperCoach option. So maybe Tino is someone you could take a punt on. I personally won't go there just because I want to see it first. He burnt quite a few people last season as well. And big day for Feeder, locking him into my team. Don't really need to say much more about him. He's an absolute weapon. I am locking him in. If he doesn't start the season well, look, he's the most expensive second row forward, so you can just drop down to anyone that you like, but I'm hoping that he will just stay in my team for the duration. I'm not even sure if he plays the full 80 because they have got some cover on the bench there, but I think Lasone and Jolliffe are more prop cover, and Proctor is a back rower, so he might cover for Fermor. So Fafita could actually get some good minutes there, but honestly, Fafita plays he can play 40 minutes and get 150. He just does that in his he will just run over half the team like he did against the Rabbitohs and score a hat trick and get you 150 in a half. So yeah, Fafita, the minutes don't even concern me that much, in all honesty. I think he's just that much of a wrecking ball. All right, so that's my thoughts on that. A few people did also mention about Tanner Boyd, maybe as a cheap hooker, but he's like 340k. Ethan, why don't I ever talk about Papali'i? You're right, maybe I should talk about Papali'i. He was such a weapon last season. I just feel he's a bit too expensive, Ethan. That's the only thing. Just think that he's, 650 something K? I just think it's a lot of money to pay when I know I can pay like 60k less and go for Haas, even cheaper to go for Fanul Blake. So I feel like Papali'i's price maybe at his peak. I mean, it's hard. I think Papali'i probably would maybe do the same as what he did last year, which makes you think, should I start with him? But I just feel like that 600 something K, I would rather put that into Crichton, like say Angus. Maybe it's my Roosters bias, I don't know. But yeah, that's it's not even a great reason, is it? So I get what you're saying. I probably haven't spoken about Papali'i enough, but I think he's just a bit too pricey for my liking. I think especially, look, if I got him, I'd probably put him on my front row forward, not my second row forward. But so I feel like that's too much money to pay in my front row. I'd rather just go cheaper with paying Haas. But look, if you start with him and he kicks the season off as he did last year, you could be laughing. Okay, let's get on to the last game. I think this is the last game, isn't it? It is. So the last game, Cowboys and the Bulldogs. So yeah, a few talking points out of this one. Not much in the backs for the Cowboys, so I'll kind of skip that. But the forwards I think is where all the interest was. So we've got Jermaine Tanua-Brown starting. He's 274k, and the bench is a bit of a strange one in the sense of it's hard to predict the minutes that Tanua-Brown is going to get. You've got Cotter on the bench who probably plays more in the middle, so he might maybe take some minutes off Taumalolo. Just say if Taumalolo doesn't play the full 80. You've got McLean, who's a genuine prop, so obviously McLean will come on for the likes of Cohen Hess and Tanua-Brown. Mitch Dunn, I see Mitch Dunn more as a edge back rower than a prop, but guys, correct me if I'm wrong. I could be completely off the mark there. And Tom Gilbert, I believe, is more of a back rower as well. So, for example, if you're looking at, say, Lukey and Nanai, I don't think either will play the full 80 minutes, but they're pretty cheap, like 350k. And so, the Cowboys actually have a very good draw for the first 6 rounds of the year. So you might see some attacking upside from Lukey or Nanai. It's a coin toss, I think, between those two. Did I just say coin toss or coin toss? I hope I said coin toss and not coin toss, but it is a bit of a 50-50 between Lukey and Nanai. But yeah, I think one of the two could be an option. I think I've currently got Lukey in my team. I honestly might just have to watch some more highlights just to see if I want to go to Nanai instead, but I don't see too much of a difference between them, so I don't want to overthink it too much. I can see Mike is already asking in the chat, Lukey or Nanai? Oh mate, don't make me do it. I don't know. Look, I'll say Lukey, but I have seen people say that they prefer the eye test of Nanai. So, yeah, it's a hard one. I'd probably just go Lukey, but that's honestly, I'm just pulling something out of my ASS there. But yeah, Tanua-Brown, I think we can comfortably get him in. What is he, 275k? I think it's a pretty nice price in your front row forward. He punched out about 40, 45 in the preseason trial. So yeah, I think Tanua-Brown I'm very comfortable going with. And obviously that kills the likes of Cotter. And Taumalolo, look, Taumalolo I'm probably not going to start with, even though I've heard the reports say he's going to be playing the big minutes again. But I kind of want to see it. He's coming back off a couple of injuries. Look, like around that price point, I know I can get someone like... Look, I know Aiken is not Taumalolo for SuperCoach, but I just want to be able to do the switch if I have to, rather than start with it and then have it kind of burn in my face. So yeah, maybe I'm being too cautious there. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the Cowboys forward. But I think Tanua-Brown is a great get. I'll probably end up getting him in my team, and I'll probably get one of Lukey and Nanai, I think, as well. And finally, the Bulldogs. I don't think there's too much to chat about here. Braden Burns coming in for Aaron Shute, but I don't think anyone is considering either of those two players anyway, in all honesty. And then Matt Burton, I think, is the only option I'm really looking at. but he's pretty expensive, like mid 500s, and they've got a pretty tough draw. So he is goal kicking, but I don't think I'll start there. Maybe in the forwards, you can maybe consider someone like a Josh Jackson. Is pretty solid. You know that he's just going to get through a mountain of work, but limited upside there. Max King on the bench is a good thing. 188k. I think hopefully he just punches out like maybe 35 points in 30 minutes. So should make some money, hopefully for us. Tavita Pangai you could maybe go for. But after I saw that trial, I took him out of my team just because I didn't want the risk of suspensions and things to deal with straight away. And yeah, looking at the bench, like Waddell, King and Patolo and Biondi Odo, it's hard to call the kind of minutes rotation. I would expect Lou Thompson to play decent minutes, but he's also fairly expensive, like 500k plus. So I probably wouldn't start with him. And he did also score quite a few tries last year. That definitely boosted up his average. And Hetherington might get some minutes as well. I think Barrett does like Hetherington. But again, he could be a walking suspension. Those back rowers, I want to see in the chat, who do you guys think will get suspended first, Hetherington or Pangai Jr.? I'm going to leave it at that, I think, for the team's analysis, guys. I've been going on for almost an hour, but I'll get onto my own team at the moment. But I'll quickly look at a couple of questions just before that. So Chazza saying Mitch Dunn playing middle this year. Gilbert and Nanai fighting for a starting spot. Okay, that's good to know that Dunn will play more in the middle. So you're probably going to have, Tanua Brown, Cohen Hess, McLean and Dunn as your kind of middles. And then you have Gilbert, Nanai and Lukey kind of sharing minutes on the edge there. And then Cotter might maybe spell Taumalolo for periods of time as well. So there might be a bit of a hybrid approach going on there. Tomato, not sure if you've talked about it already, but thoughts on Wilton? Yeah, I did speak a little bit about Wilton. I think he could be a safe option, but he didn't really have much upside, and he's around the mid 400s, so it's a bit of an awkward price in my opinion. Alright guys, let's get onto my team. So let's see what it looks like at this moment. I've got 2,000 in the bank. I've got Reed Marnie and I've got Chris Randall, so I made it pretty obvious just then that I was pretty keen on Reed Marnie, and I think I want to maybe jump on the Eels assets to start off with. So I've got Reed Marnie locked in there at the moment. Front row forward, I've got Haas, and then I've gone cheap with the second one. I know when I was rating a few people's teams, I said maybe it's a bit of a risk, but I thought about it a little bit more, and I think, look, if he's punching out 40 to 45 points at 275k, there's room to grow, and hopefully maybe we can just punt him after the first few rounds, maybe pocket some cash, and then we can upgrade to one of those mid front row forwards, maybe like a Stefano, maybe to like a Jai Arrow, just because I'm thinking, Stefano and Arrow are like 200k more than the likes of Tanua Brown, but they might only average 10 points more, maybe. So I'm thinking I can take a pretty significant saving there and go with Tanua Brown. So he's currently my second front row forward, but I wanted to make sure I had at least one gun in there just to kind of lock in some points. So I've got Payne Haas there at the moment, feeling pretty comfortable with him. And guys, obviously now you've seen the team. Look, if you like it, give the stream a like. If you dislike it, give the stream a like anyway. Yep, so that's that at the moment. My second row forward, so I'll quickly scroll there. So I've got Fafita, I've got Crichton, and I've got Aiken, as I was talking all about Aiken just before. And I've got Lukey on the bench there. Targo, I've said quite a few times, I'm pretty keen to lock him into the second row forward, as opposed to the centre wing, because there's quite a few cheapies there. And then Kelma Tuolagi. So again, I don't think there's anything too controversial on my bench with Lukey, Targo and Tuolagi. Maybe a 50-50 of Lukey versus Nanai. It's the Ewan Aiken spot I'm really, really unsure about, in my opinion. So I'd really appreciate your input in the chat as well, guys. I think I've already noticed that there's quite a few questions around this. Aiken, Nakora, Taumalolo, or do you go even cheaper? Go with Lukey, go with Nanai, go with Katoa, save like an extra 100k. So I'm thinking what I'll do is I'm probably going to try and have a bit more of a think about this third second row forward spot, because I am really struggling here to lock it in, because there's a few options around this price. So if I quickly toggle to second row forward, so scrolling a little bit further down there, you could get someone like Jack Bird, Tino, Aiken, Taumalolo, Nakora, Tupanua is an option. A little bit cheaper than that, you can go down to like maybe an Arrow potentially. Radley, someone mentioned in the chat earlier. And then if you go even cheaper than that, you've got the likes of Fermor, maybe, but I'm a little bit cold on him now. Not Gilbert, sorry, but you've got the likes of Nanai and Lukey and Katoa. So yeah, I'm really, really torn on this position. Chaz is saying get Nanai, not Lukey, and he's saying Nakora over Aiken. Nakora is a little bit cheaper. How much is Nanai? Sorry, I think I just scrolled past him. Nanai is 243. Okay, so he's about 10k cheaper. I think I'll keep that in mind. If I need to save like 10k, I might then do that downgrade of Lukey to Nanai. That might be something I think about. But yeah, this third second row forward spot I'm really torn on at the moment. I've been on Aiken the whole preseason, so I kind of don't want to overthink it that much if I can. And I also know that he is the most expensive, so if I need to switch to Nanai, if it looks like Aiken's flopping and Nanai's been killing it, and I can jump on a price rise, then I'll make the switch then. As opposed to, say, if I had to do it the other way around, it'd be a little bit more difficult. So maybe that's my thought process there. Maybe just stick with Aiken because he is the highest price guy. And look, the draw is good. The draw is good for the Warriors, so I do also want to get a bit of a piece of that because I don't have that many other Warriors in my team. So, you got Dragons, Titans, Tigers, Broncos, Cowboys, and then it's the Roosters. So the first 5 rounds are good. So maybe I could just write some cash price rises, hopefully on Aiken for the first 5 weeks, and then just make a switch to the next best guy at that point in time. So that's what I'm thinking at the moment in second row forward. We'd love to see what you guys think in the chat about that. But that's the forwards right now. I don't think there's anything too controversial there. It's pretty template in my opinion. So yeah, Nakora is a bit of a pod, but no real pods here. But you know what? I'm not too fixated on pods. I just want to go for maybe the more best, safer options if I can. I don't want to lose in the beginning, but look, I'm not going to win in the beginning, but you can lose it if I went with all these pods and then they flopped. Chazza, you do make a good point though, that Aiken is very versatile and that he could go to the centres if Katoa plays well. So that is something I should think about a little bit more as well. If Aiken maybe moves to the centre, if when Tohu comes back and Curran moves back to the edge, I will think about that for sure. And Nakora does have Hines, as you mentioned. And Hines is going to be a really solid pick, I think, as well. Okay, the backs. So the backs, I have actually changed the backs up a little bit. And I'm still, again, not 100% certain about all of these picks. But the halves I'm pretty comfortable with. Sam Walker and Brad Schneider. I don't think there's too much really for me to expand on. I think if Walker's goal kicking, I really want a piece of the Roosters attack. And he's got pretty favourable draw over the first 8 weeks. What have you got? You've got Newcastle to start off with, Manly. Rabbitohs is a little bit tougher, but then you've got the Cowboys, Broncos, Warriors, Dragons, Bulldogs, Titans. It's only up until round 10 when they start versing the tougher teams in Parramatta and Panthers. So yeah, Roosters I'm keen on. I am thinking that... Sorry, I'll stop scrolling, guys. Give me 1 second there. So with these wet games that we might see over the first few rounds, or at least for this week, maybe the scoring is not going to be as high for Sam Walker, but I'm kind of willing to take that risk a little bit. Just don't think about this round as much, and whatever. If it's wet, maybe that means he gets more tackle breaks and line breaks as well. So Sam Walker, I think, to me, it felt like an easy replacement instead of when I was not going to go with Cleary. I'm glad that Cleary's out in the sense of it made me reduce the headaches I had, because if Cleary was named round 1, I'd be really struggling. I'd be like, oh my god, wait, how do I get Cleary, Crichton, Tedesco and everything? I probably won't start with Cherry Evans just because I think the price is a little bit too high and I think he can be a bit inconsistent at the beginning of the year. Nico Hines is someone I'm also considering. Jerome Hughes, haven't really spoken about Hughes actually. I didn't speak about him. Let me know in the chat anyone who's going with Jerome Hughes, because I think he's a pretty safe option as well. I just kind of want to chase maybe more of that upside with Walker. Maybe risk a little bit more inconsistency. But yeah, Hughes could be an option, but I like the price point of Sam Walker, the mid 500s. It feels like a nice price, not too expensive, but it does feel like there is also room to grow with him as well. Schneider I've spoken about. So the 5'8", Ilias, don't really need to talk about Ilias that much there. Now I've got Dylan Brown. Again, playing a little bit on that Eels factor, just pile in on the Eels. It is a bit of a risk, but I feel like instead of going with those pods, like outright pods, maybe the pod is that I go in hard on one particular team. So that's why I've thought about going with Dylan Brown. Now, I could take money out of some positions like in my centre wing or second row forward, and I could then bump that up to Munster. That is something I've thought about. It doesn't quite feel right not having either Grant or Munster. I feel like I should get at least one of them, just because they are going to be probably the biggest Supercoach performers from the Storm. So I feel like maybe it should be safe to stick with either Munster or Grant. So that is something I am thinking about, guys. I'd be keen to see what you guys also think about that in the chat. I am thinking that maybe I should stick with at least one of Grant and Munster. And I feel like I'm leaning more towards going with Munster instead of Grant. just because I think Marnie is in probably hopefully for a good year. And so I think I feel comfortable picking Marnie. But Munster feels like he's in for a bit of a big year. And Dylan Brown, look, I've got Dylan Brown, but I'm not 100% certain with it. He's got a good base. He burnt me last year, though. I started with Dylan Brown last year and he burnt me. But you know what? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So I'm willing to go back there. And if I get burnt again, then that's just my fault. So yeah, Dylan Brown's in there at the moment. Just going to see quickly the chat. So Riley, you asked about Murray. Kind of gave my thoughts on Murray. I think he's a bit pricey. The draw is tough to begin the first month. And he typically does start a little bit slower, in my experience, from a Supercoach standpoint. And he's also coming off some injuries as well. So that's the reason why I'm not going for Murray. I want to lock in Crichton and Fafita in the second row forward in terms of my guns. Random Aussie, Junior Paulo or Zach Lomax. Now that's interesting. You're basically asking the same price point. I would just say Lomax because he has got the upside. Paulo does have upside, don't get me wrong. He loves an offload, can very easily get attacking stats as well. But yeah, I have a good feeling about the Dragons. I don't know. I got a good feeling about the Dragons, and I feel like I wanted to at least get one of their backline players in. That's not Amon, because I think Amon's going to be a pretty safe bet. So yeah, I've got in Lomax, again, picking more of the expensive one, just in case if it doesn't work, maybe I can downgrade to someone like a Beau Firm, or I can still make a switch to Kurt Mann if I need to. So I'm trying to be flexible with the team as well. So that's the reason why I've got Kurt Mann in there. I've got Stags, just because I think, look, he's a gun. He's an absolute weapon. And it's a nice first 4 rounds as well. Apart from Souths in round 1. But to be honest, I think the Rabbitohs can still league points. So I don't mind that. And he should be lining up against Jackson Paulo. So I think it's a pretty good matchup for Tony Staggs. And then you've got the Bulldogs and then the Cowboys. And then he's got, who does he have after that? The Warriors. So the first month is pretty good for Staggs. So I don't mind picking him. He's very highly owned as well, I think, at the moment. So yeah, I'm happy to consider Staggs to begin the year. And then, again, I've just filled out the rest of the centers with the cheapies. So Billy Smith, I think I'm pretty comfortable picking him. He's very highly rated by the Roosters and named in the starting spot. I think it's a good price. I'll lock him in. Same with Sean Russell, left wing. No real kind of question marks on myself there. Amon, again, should hopefully be an exciting prospect. I like the fact that he's playing at 5'8". So, there's more potential for attacking upside there with attacking stats. Penasini should be pretty safe for like 40 to 45 a week. He's got pretty decent base. And then Valet from the Warriors. So again, 205k feels like a nice price. And then the fullbacks, Tedesco and Pappenhausen. I've been very stuck on these two for the whole preseason, and I've not really changed my mind here. It was only really depending on injuries, whether Pappenhausen was out or not. But if he's fit for round 1, I'm very confident in running Pappenhausen and Tedesco. And at the moment, I've got Tedesco captain. Now, I haven't really thought about that much, but he is playing the Knights, so I think it's a good fixture for Tedesco. But that's the team. That's my team, guys. So I'd be keen to see what you guys think about it. Rip it to shreds if you like it. Rip it to shreds if you don't like it. If you do like it, bask in its glory. This is the team that might win SuperCoach. I'm joking. I don't think I'm going to win SuperCoach with this team. And the reason it's not going to win SuperCoach, this team, is because I'm 95% certain this team is going to change, because that's just how I like to operate. So let's see what a few people are saying in the chat. So Sticky Nicky was saying Munster instead of the Grant pick. So I've got a bit of a confirmation bias from Sticky Nicky there. Stuart Wallace says, I'm flipping Marnie to Grant. So he's going Grant. Luke, how do I bring Cleary back into the team? Look, that's a fantastic question. I should think about that. How would I bring Cleary back into this team? I don't think I'd be able to get Cleary back straight away. So let's say he's out for the first 3 rounds. So looking at the Panthers draw, round 4, who do they play? Oops, it's not scrolling for me. They play the Rabbitohs. So I could maybe steer away in that round. Yeah, you raised a good point, Luke, because from round 5 onwards, you're gonna want Cleary. Bulldogs, Broncos, Raiders, Titans in the 4 games after that. Yeah, because round 5, you might want to captain Cleary. Just thinking about it, it's hard to say completely because obviously there will be price changes come round 4 and 5. I'm thinking I'd probably keep Sam Walker. It might be a case of, actually I realize I can't even do the flip of Dylan Brown because I don't have the right duels. I might have to think about that a little bit more. what I'd maybe do is, if I really wanted Cleary, if I had to get him, I think I'd have to take out one of my gun second row forwards, or maybe Payne Haas, or even Marnie, if, for example, there's a mid-range hooker who starts doing well. But like, if I wanted to take out Cleary, for example, let's say assuming all the prices are the same, let's first take out money out of my center wing. So let's say, for example, I take out Lomax and instead I go for a cheapie. So let's say, for argument's sake, Suwali's back in the frame at right wing instead of Momorowski. So let's say, for example, I can maybe do that downgrade. I know it's all hypothetical, but let's just see if it works. So let's say if I did that come round 4 or 5, that gives me 239k. Now, look, I might want to keep Sam Walker, but Cleary's a different level. So if I did that, I'd have 785k. So I would still be 200k off of getting Cleary. So I guess what I would maybe do then, this might be one of those cases where you do a trade boost. Maybe use one of your trade boosts to do 3 changes. So I can do like 2 downgrades and then the upgrade. So the Lomax to Suwali was maybe one of the downgrades. Maybe Stags to another cheap center wing could be another downgrade. And then that maybe gives me 200k, for example. Like, say, for example, I don't know. Let's say Jordan Pereira comes back into the Broncos team and Stags is not performing. Then Stags to Pereira is like another 200-ish k. And maybe that gets me up to Cleary. So I think, look, that's one permutation of going about it. Maybe I take out Dylan Brown for like a Jackson Hastings. That frees up 100k. I think there's going to be ways to take the money out of the positions. It might just require using the trade boost function, just so I can get 3 trades in to do like a double downgrade and an upgrade. But I feel like there are ways, obviously I could just do one move of Crichton down to like a Katoa, and that probably then gives me enough to get to Cleary from Sam Walker. So I think that's one way you could do it. Luke, hopefully that answered your question. Hopefully that was helpful. I think it's good to think about these things for sure. I think for the start of the season, but I don't want to solely base my team just to say have like 200k in the bank just so I can get to Cleary if I need to. I kind of want to just build a team that I like and then think about it later, because so much can change in those 5 weeks. I don't think it's worth stressing over it too much. Now, someone in the chat I think also mentioned, why did I get cold on Kiri? Cold is probably a bit extreme. I wouldn't say I'm cold on Kiri. I still think he's going to be great, but it's just the potential risk of that he's come back from that injury. He has suffered a few injuries recently. Whether that hampers his performance, not sure. The sample size that we saw last season from him was only 3 games, and look, it was a 75 average. And I did hear someone say that, look, he hasn't had that real benefit of playing with those new rules. So the Kiri that I'm more familiar with is the Kiri that gets like 60 to 65. Maybe with the new rules, Kiri actually does become that guy who averages 75. I'm just not sure if I'm comfortable starting with that, especially because the first 3 rounds of the season for the Roosters, we've got the Knights, but then I believe we've got Manly and the Rabbitohs. So at least with Sam Walker, if he's goal kicking, I feel like the floor can be raised a little bit. So at least if the Roosters do well, Sam Walker should hopefully get some nice points from goal kicking, whereas Kiri doesn't. So I'm thinking Walker might be slightly safer just to begin the year with. And look, if Kiri's killing it and the Roosters are killing it, maybe I just go with the double Roosters halves, potentially. That's kind of my current thought process around Kiri. But don't get me wrong, if you have Kiri in your starting team, I'm not going to knock that. That's not, no way. Okay, a few questions here. Targo for 3rd second row forward, Riley. I think you're answering someone else. Yeah, Riley says, I'm really stuck in your 3rd second row forward. Yeah, same boat, brother. I cannot figure out what to do with that 3rd second row forward spot. Eli, not keen on Kurt Mann. Look, I was keen on Kurt Mann. Just that bench for the Knights was a little bit off-putting. Look, I know Wacko Whispers has said that Barnett should be playing in the forwards. In the forwards. Of course, playing in the forwards. That he'll play in the props, and then Kurt Mann, apparently from Barry Tui, is going to play 60 to 65 minutes. I'm just rethinking it now. Look, I can still go there. If I did Lomax down to Kurt Mann, that's like 100k that I'm saving, and then maybe that helps me go from Dylan Brown up to like a Kiri or a Munster. So that is something I could do, but yeah, I was just a little bit unsure with that bench. So that's kind of the reason why I'm not 100% certain on Mann. Same with Fermor. I don't know. Obviously, it's pretty obvious. I like certainty if I can get it. So yeah, that's my current thoughts around Kurt Mann. Talon, thoughts on Mitch Moses? Yeah, Moses could be a shout as well. He is a bit cheaper than Sam Walker. Similar thing, he is goal kicking. But, I don't know. He has burnt me in the past. I looked at his stats. He does tend to do well when he plays the easier teams. So I've actually got NRL SuperCoach Stats open as well. So hopefully we can have a quick look at that. And guys, if you don't use this website, you need to start using it. It is hands down the most useful website I've ever used for NRL SuperCoach. Every stat you can think of goes back so many past seasons as well. So you can find any of these stats. So all the stats that I show in my videos, these guys have got it, and I get it from here. It's a great website they run. I have donated as well, and definitely donate if you can just to support them out. And they very kindly also put my video link in the link section. There it is. So if you want to get to my channel from this website, you can as well. But yeah, quickly looking at Moses. So not too many games where he had the big upside of like 100 plus, but they came in the easier games. So you've got the Tigers, the Bulldogs, where he scored 100 plus, 99 against the Cowboys, 91 against the Warriors, and then 87 against the Raiders. But when he versed those tougher teams, he was getting more of your scores in like the 50s. So, look, I need to double check the Eels draw just because I know it's good, but I want to look specifically. So you got the Titans and the Sharks the first 2 rounds, which is good. I think the Sharks are a decent outfit. The Titans are good. Then you got Melbourne. So maybe for an initial selection, maybe the price won't go up that much because he is versing Melbourne in round 3. So maybe he gets a low score there. And then the problem with that actually is from a price change perspective, if you're trying to use Moses as a stepping stone to Cleary, that score that's maybe low in that game against the Storm, they'll be in his rolling break-even, rolling 3-game average for the longest. So, yeah, I don't know. It actually looks better from round 4 now that I look at this. Dragons, Titans, Tigers, Knights, Cowboys. So, yeah, Moses, like, I look, the Eels draw is good, but it actually gets better from rounds 4. So maybe I'm even rethinking Dylan Brown now. At least with Dylan Brown, he's got exceptional base. So, for example, if I just quickly look at Brown stats, I've just got maybe slightly more confidence that Dylan Brown can give me less bad scores, but Moses might give me more of those junk scores, but maybe a bit more upside. Like, look, Dylan Brown had no upside last year. His high score was 71. His high score was 71 last season, which was atrocious. And I started with him. And I'm going back there, guys, but the base average is insane. You can see like 39, 44, 53, like 36. His base is extraordinary for a 5'8". And the thing I like as well is that they've swapped sides again. So there shouldn't be any of that kind of switching around that they had at the start of last year. So hopefully that does help Dylan Brown. Madison playing at lock could help unlock the attack as well. So yeah, I'm not super keen on Moses. A little bit more keen on Brown. I just prefer Walker. I just prefer going for a Roosters player as well. A few questions about Billy Smith. I think we've spoken about Billy Smith quite a bit. Thoughts on Makahisi Makatoa? Yeah, I think he's 320k. What position is he listed in? Is he a front row forward or is he a second row forward? Or is he both? Have a quick look here. He's dual. Yeah, it could be like a Papali'i 2.0, but the fact that he's coming off the bench, the price feels a little bit awkward. Like, there's a lot of other props and second row forwards who are coming off the bench that are cheaper. You know, you've got the likes of Momo Sia, you've got Josh King, Sipley's starting, Tuolagi starting. I feel like there are better options in those positions who are cheaper and potentially have the same output in minutes wise. So I probably wouldn't look to go for Makatoa in all honesty. Barnes, what about double Eels halves? Oh no, look, I don't think I'd be that confident in going with double Eels halves. Like similarly, like I don't think I'd double up with the Roosters halves. Like last year, a lot of people profited starting with Luai and Cleary. The difference I feel with that is that Cleary is like an absolute shoo-in. You know you're not going to get bad scores from Cleary. So a double up there didn't seem as bad. Whereas a double up would say Moses and Brown, Walker and Keary seems a little bit more risky to me. So I probably won't do it. Sticky Nicky, still considering Pia Kura to start. Yeah, I could maybe consider Pia Kura if I wanted to save a little bit extra money. I could maybe downgrade. Well, the thing is, I'd want to keep Targo. I'd want to keep Tuolagi. I'd probably want to keep that 350k fourth second row forward, and probably want to keep that third second row forward as well. So I'm not actually sure where I could fit in Pia Kura, in all honesty. I think maybe I'll just leave him out if I can build a team that I like, and just leave it for if he comes back on the bench, maybe just pick him up before he goes on his first price rise. Benny G, Benny's in the chat. Great to see you, Benny. Fermor and Man in your side. Yep, I remember rating your team. You had the pair of them. Fermor is rumored to be playing 80. Runs a great hole or line as quick for a big guy. Yeah, look, I like the look of Fermor. Are you sure he's going to play 80 though? Like Kevin Proctor on the bench, wouldn't that maybe eat into his minutes a little bit? I mean, I could be wrong on that. That's my gut feel. So it put me off Fermor just a little bit. A couple more questions around. Is Walker going to kick? He probably should be kicking, that's the word. But he wasn't a great goal kicker. So Momorowski could start kicking again. Or maybe they just keep Adam Kieran on the bench just to be a goal kicker because no one else at the Roosters seemingly can goal kick. Yeah, Benny, I saw that quote as well from Barry Tui about Randall and Man. Yeah, 65 minutes plus. It just feels strange that Man would be given that role when Watson didn't have it last year. So maybe I need to think about it more. Maybe I can take money out of, say, Lomax, for example. Like, if I went, say, Lomax to Man, what could I do with that money? It gives me 115k. 115k, look, I can go from Aiken to... I'd probably keep that price point, I think, in there. Keep Aiken back there. But I could upgrade Brown to Munster. Can I do that? No, I'm a bit short of that. So I can't actually afford Munster with that money. I could go to Burton and stuff, but no, I'd probably just stick with Brown. Or maybe I can go up to Luke Keary, but maybe I'll just stick with Dylan Brown there. The 115k, what could I do with that? I could... Maybe it's just Marnie to Grant. As I mentioned, I think maybe going for at least one of Grant or Munster is the play there. And then that still leaves me 65k. 65k. I could, instead of Stags, maybe I have Lomax. If I wanted to have Lomax in there, that might be what I could do. I can just fit in Lomax. So Stags to Man would give me enough to go Marnie to Grant, and I'd have 1,700. So not much in the bank there, but it does give me that Storm's gun player, so that might be a good option that I can consider. It does mean losing Stags, but it's not the worst, I think. So yeah, there's a few things I can tinker with my team, but I think the majority of it is pretty set. Like, I don't think, like, if I just go from the bottom up, Tedesco, Pappenhausen, I don't expect to change. The three bench centres and Russell and Smith, I don't expect to change. So it's only really Kurt Mann, Lomax. Kurt Mann, Lomax, Fermor, Stags, some of the guys in my thoughts. Schneider and Ilias are locked in. I think Sam Walker's locked in. Dylan Brown isn't a question mark. Maybe he becomes Munster. I think Targo, Tuolagi, Crichton and Fafita are as locked in as I can. Hopefully I can keep all of them. And then it becomes just Aiken and Lukey that I might change around. I think King is locked in. Payne Haas is locked in. I think Tunua Brown's probably locked in for me as well. Maybe with that spare money that I had earlier, I can upgrade Fafita to, say, like a Sipley or a Bullimore. I haven't even got Bullimore on the team. I just realised I don't have Bullimore. I could even downgrade Lukey to Bullimore, but there was a few people saying that Bullimore's a trap. Maybe I join them on the trap train and I don't start with him. So Bullimore's an option. Randall's locked in, and then the hook is still, I think, up for grabs. So there's a few key positions I'm still up in the air about. I'm going to have to give it a bit of a think. But yeah, that's the team as it is at the moment. So if I just go back to what I had previously, just to kind of show you guys more accurately what I was thinking. So where's Stags? What's his ownership? 40%. He's 40% owned. So let's actually take a quick look at the ownership of these guys. Just curious. Targo, Penasini, Suwali's still in 42% of teams, which is surprising. Yep, Stags is up there. Amon, Coates. Coates is one player I'm definitely swerving, who is very highly owned. Kula has been very popular because he is named on the bench, but Aiken's still pretty popular, 19% as well. But yeah, guys, I think I'm probably going to end this stream there very soon. I think because I don't really have much more to add on to my own team, but hopefully you guys found that interesting, going through my kind of initial thoughts to TLT round 1 and also just around my team at the moment. So the plan is I'm going to hopefully put a more updated team video out tomorrow, just with some of my updated thoughts, but I don't expect it to largely change from this. But I'll definitely put that out tomorrow if I can. And then Thursday, I haven't actually decided if I'm going to do a video or if I'm going to do like a bit of a countdown to lockout. So let me know if you guys would be keen to see something like a countdown to lockout live stream. Probably not something I do every week, but maybe just it's a bit of a special event given that it is round 1. So that is something I'm toying up doing as well. But yeah, guys, I might end the stream there. I'll see if there's any other questions in the chat for completeness. Mike, just a quick dumb question. No such thing as a dumb question. Should we always have a non-player to allow looping? Look, maybe you could have a non-player for looping, but I think at the start of the season, I'm really trying to focus on having a squad of 25 players just to build some team value up as well. So, like, in all honesty, I probably won't be doing the vice-captain loophole that often. So I wouldn't necessarily carry enough or a non-player just so that you can do the vice-captain loophole. Mentioned it in my vice-captain loophole video that it's more useful in the second half of the season in any case. So I think I'm probably going to end the stream there, guys. I saw we had 100 viewers. I think we're still on 100 viewers, 53 likes. So thank you so much for liking the stream and engaging in the chat, guys. Really good to see you all in there. And obviously, if you haven't yet, give the stream a like on the way out, just to help bump up the videos to the masses on YouTube so that we can spread the word of SuperCoach. But I'm going to end the stream there, guys. Hope you all enjoyed that one. Hopefully see you tomorrow with another video. Hope you'll have fun tinkering with your teams now. Not too long until round 1. So this is when the exciting stuff and the exciting times happen. So take care, guys. I'm going to end it there. See you all in the next one.